In September 2021, a single music video did something no solo artist on Earth had ever done in 24 hours. Not Taylor Swift, not Ariana Grande, not Beyoncé. The record was broken by a teenager who, a decade earlier, had left her home in Thailand alone, moved to a country where she couldn't speak the language, and spent 5 years being told to change almost everything about herself to fit in. Today, some industry analysts argue she may be worth more to global brands than the girl group that made her famous in the first place. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how that happened, and why it's more complicated and more interesting than it sounds. This August marks 10 years since 4 young women stepped onto a stage in Seoul and changed what a K-pop girl group could be. BLACKPINK's Jisoo, Jennie, Rose, and Lisa didn't just build a fandom, they built an empire that stretched from Korean music charts to Coachella's main stage to the covers of Vogue and Billboard. But this video isn't just a highlight reel. It's an argument, the case that, member for member, Lisa has quietly become BLACKPINK's biggest individual export to the rest of the world. We're going to test that claim chapter by chapter, her trainee years, the doubts that followed her early career, the record-breaking solo debut, the luxury brand empire, and yes, a fair look at the other 3 members who might have something to say about who's really biggest. If you've ever wondered how a system built to produce uniform, camera-ready idols ended up producing the most followed woman in K-pop history, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe if you like these deep dives. We've got 10 years of history to get through, so let's start where it all began. A dance studio in Bangkok, and 4,000 other kids with the same dream. Chapter 1. The only one out of 4,000. Before she was Lisa, she was Lalisa Manobal, a kid from Buriram province in Thailand who grew up dancing in local competitions and school shows. As a young teenager in Bangkok, she trained with a local dance crew alongside another kid who'd later become famous in his own right, Bam Bam, who went on to debut with the boy group GOT7. In 2010, a Korean entertainment company came to Thailand scouting talent. Around 4,000 people auditioned. One made the cut. That was her. Here's the part that's easy to gloss over. She wasn't just the only Thai trainee selected that year. She was YG Entertainment's first ever international trainee. Full stop. No foreign roadmap, no precedent, no one who'd walked that exact path before her. At 14 years old, she legally changed her name to Lalisa, meaning one who is praised, and moved to Seoul completely alone in 2011. She didn't speak Korean. She said in interviews that trainers actively discouraged the other girls in the dorm from speaking English around her, specifically so she'd be forced to learn the language faster. Imagine being a teenager, thousands of miles from home, unable to fully communicate with the people you live and train with every day, evaluated monthly on your singing, dancing, and rapping for 5 straight years, with no guarantee any of it would lead anywhere. And the uncertainty was real. Trainee lineups shift constantly behind closed doors. At various points, the group that would eventually become BLACKPINK was planned with a different member count entirely, under different working names, before settling into the 4-person lineup fans know today. Long before she had a debut date, Lisa was already being quietly tested in public. In 2013, she turned up as an anonymous backup dancer in a senior label mate's music video, Taeyang's Ring-a-Linga, and by 2015 and 2016, she was modeling for YG's streetwear line Nona Nainon and the cosmetics brand Moonshot. Visible, but nameless. A face without a title. That's the part a highlight reel usually skips. 5 years of evaluations where you didn't make it was always a real possible outcome, right up until the day it wasn't. It did. In June 2016, she was revealed as the 2nd confirmed member of a new girl group. On August 8, 2016, BLACKPINK officially debuted with the single album Square One, featuring the double title tracks Whistle and Boom Baya. Lisa stepped into the group as its main dancer, lead rapper, and maknae. But being the token international member of a Korean girl group came with an asterisk that would follow her for years. Was she the dance and rap member because that's where her talent lay? Or because that's the role a foreign trainee gets assigned by default? That question didn't go away. If anything, it got louder. Chapter 2. The Skeptics. Here's where it gets interesting, because BLACKPINK's early years weren't just about breaking records. They were about proving a lot of people wrong. For years, the narrative around Lisa inside and outside the fandom was strangely limiting. She was celebrated as the group's most technically gifted dancer, but rarely spoken of as a potential frontwoman. Some corners of the industry treated her international background less as an asset and more as a marketing footnote, useful for Southeast Asian promotion, but not central to the group's identity. Then, in October 2021, that skepticism boiled over into an actual public controversy. Reports emerged that Lisa had been kept from attending Bulgari fashion events and photo shoots in Paris, despite being in Europe at the time, reportedly due to her agency's caution during the pandemic. Fans started a hashtag campaign demanding her label let her do the international work she'd already earned. It became a genuine flashpoint, proof that even as BLACKPINK's global profile exploded, the systems around its members hadn't necessarily caught up to Lisa's individual star power. So picture the situation heading into her 20s, main dancer, sub-vocalist, the youngest, the foreign member. Respected, but boxed in. A solo career, if it ever happened, was far from guaranteed to be taken seriously by an industry that already had its narrative about her set. Then, in September 2021, doubt became almost irrelevant. Chapter 3. Breaking Out. How BLACKPINK Conquered the West. Before we get to Lisa's solo explosion, we need to rewind slightly, because none of it happens without BLACKPINK's own historic rise. In April 2019, BLACKPINK became the first K-pop girl group ever to perform at Coachella. It wasn't a headlining slot yet, but it was the moment American audiences who'd never listened to a Korean song suddenly had BLACKPINK in their feed. From there, things moved fast. Music videos like Do 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 Do, Kill This Love, and How You Like That racked up hundreds of millions, then billions of views, joining earlier hits like Boom Baya and As If It's Your Last. A Netflix documentary, BLACKPINK Light Up the Sky, introduced the group's origin story to an even wider global audience in 2020. Between 2018 and 2020, BLACKPINK carried that momentum into a global arena tour, In Your Area. In 2020, their collaboration with Selena Gomez, Ice Cream, debuted at number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100. 2 years later, Born Pink debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200, becoming the best-selling album by a female act in South Korean history. Along the way, the group's influence stopped being purely commercial. In September 2021, the United Nations named BLACKPINK advocates for its Sustainable Development Goals, the first Asian act to hold that role, and later that year they addressed COP26 in Glasgow. 2 years after that, in November 2023, King Charles III presented all 4 members with honorary MBEs in recognition of the climate advocacy work. In 2023, BLACKPINK also returned to Coachella as headliners, the first Korean act, and the first all-female group to do so. So, by the time BLACKPINK hit its peak as a group, the entire world was watching, and not just for the music. Which raises the question, with 4 members riding that same wave, why did Lisa pull ahead as an individual brand? The answer starts with a single song. Chapter 4. Lalisa, and the Making of a Solo Icon. On September 10th, 2021, Lisa released her first solo single album, Lalisa, alongside Money. Within 24 hours, the Lalisa music video reached 73.6 million views, a Guinness World Record. She became the fastest solo artist to hit 100 million views. Money, later, became the first song by a K-pop soloist to surpass 1 billion streams on Spotify. This is where the earlier narrative collapsed, because records like that don't happen by accident. They reflect individual pull, and Lisa's pull was enormous. 2 years after fans were fighting for her right to attend brand events, she was setting global records on her own. In December 2023, she chose not to renew her individual contract with YG while remaining for group activities. She launched Loud and partnered with RCA Records. In 2024, Rockstar became her third career top 10 hit on the Billboard Global 200, following Lalisa and Money, and songs like New Woman and Moonlit Floor Kiss Me pushed her further into the global mainstream. Then, on February 28, 2025, came Alter Ego, her debut full-length studio album, a 15-track project built with heavyweight collaborators like Ryan Tedder and Max Martin, featuring guest turns from Rosalia and Tyla. It landed at number 7 on the Billboard 200, while topping the top album sales chart outright, making her the second BLACKPINK member to crack the Billboard 200's top 10 as a soloist, just months after Rose had done it first. That spring, she took the album to Coachella as a solo headline performer for the first time, and later teamed up with South African singer Tyla on When I'm With You. But music was only the beginning. Chapter 5. From runway to red carpet, building a luxury empire. Lisa's influence extended far beyond music. She'd already been a global ambassador for Bulgari since July 2020 and for MAC Cosmetics, while deepening her relationship with Celine. In July 2024, Louis Vuitton named her a house ambassador, with artistic director Nicolas Ghesquiere citing her daring spirit and charisma. 2 months later, she headlined 4 separate covers of Vogue Korea in the brand's Fall-Winter 2024 collection. That same September, she co-headlined the Global Citizen Festival in New York's Central Park, her first-ever solo festival performance. The fashion momentum kept compounding. In early 2026, Nike signed her to a long-term global partnership, her first with a major sportswear brand, and streetwear label Kith brought her back as guest designer for its Spring 2026 women's collection, following an earlier campaign together. Skincare house Shiseido also named her a global ambassador, and along the way, she'd added deals with Sony PlayStation and a limited edition Bose earbuds collaboration to an already sprawling roster. Perhaps the most striking new title, though, had nothing to do with fashion at all. In October 2025, the Tourism Authority of Thailand named her the Amazing Thailand Ambassador, and in January 2026 unveiled her fronting the Feel All the Feelings campaign film, a push the agency hopes will help drive tourism revenue past 3 trillion baht for the year. A jewelry house, a fashion house, a beauty brand, 2 luxury labels, a sportswear giant, and her own country's tourism board. Few artists anywhere have assembled a portfolio that wide. But the question remains, is she truly the biggest? Chapter 6. The comparison nobody wants to make. Jennie built her image with Chanel and Calvin Klein, released her debut solo album, Ruby, in 2025, and stepped into acting with HBO's The Idol back in 2023. Jisoo became Dior's ambassador, launched her own label, released her 2025 EP, Amortage, and entered acting globally. Rose achieved a massive crossover hit with Apt. Alongside Bruno Mars, released her own debut album, Rosie, in December 2024, and became the face of Saint Laurent, and Apt. Went on to become the first K-pop track ever nominated for Record of the Year and Song of the Year at the Grammys, making her the first K-pop soloist to perform on that stage. If you're measuring by one song, Rose may have the biggest single moment. But biggest global export is about consistency and range. Lisa stands out with her combined reach, music, fashion, acting, brand dominance, and social media influence. She became the first Asian woman to surpass 100 million Instagram followers and remains the most followed K-pop idol. It's not a knockout, it's a strong case. Chapter 7. Cultural Crossover into the West. In early 2025, Lisa made her acting debut in HBO's The White Lotus Season 3, playing Mook, a health mentor at a fictional Thailand resort, a role she landed by simply auditioning as a fan of the show. It marked the first time a BLACKPINK member had led a major English-language series, and it put her, credited under her birth name Lalisa Manobal, in front of an entirely new audience. Weeks later, on March 2, 2025, she became the first Korean act ever to perform on the Oscars stage, joining Doja Cat and Ray for a James Bond tribute at the 97th Academy Awards, opening the medley with a rendition of Live and Let Die that earned a standing ovation. None of this arrived without turbulence. Back in the fall of 2023, her guest performances at the storied Crazy Horse Cabaret in Paris had triggered a very public backlash across Chinese and South Korean social media, with some luxury brand accounts briefly scrubbing photos of her and her own Weibo account getting suspended amid the furor, a reminder that her global reach didn't mean universal approval in every market. By 2025, she'd made her Met Gala debut in a striking Louis Vuitton look, and in December of that year, she was named to the 2026 Met Gala Host Committee, becoming the first K-pop artist ever to hold that role. From trainee to cultural figure, the shift was complete. Chapter 8. 10 years later, where they all stand now. BLACKPINK spent 2025 reuniting on the road for their Deadline, their world tour, which kicked off at Goyang Stadium in July, and, that August, made them the first K-pop girl group to headline London's Wembley Stadium, where they paid tribute to the Spice Girls with a cover of Wannabe. The tour's lead single, Jump, released that same July, debuted at #1 on 2 global Billboard charts. Then on February 27, 2026, BLACKPINK marked their 10th anniversary with Deadline, their third mini-album and first group release in over 3 years, anchored by the title track, Go. Each member now stands as a global force in her own lane. Jennie in fashion and acting, Jisoo in music and business, Rose in global music recognition, and Lisa, across music, fashion, acting, and global branding, arguably holds the widest reach of them all. A system built to create uniform idols ended up producing 4 completely distinct global figures. And the one who once seemed hardest to categorize may have built the biggest space for herself. Now the verdict is yours. 10 years ago, a young girl in Thailand, auditioned alongside thousands with no guarantee of success. She moved to a new country, learned a new language, and endured years of uncertainty. Today, she stands as one of the most recognizable global figures in pop culture. So maybe the real question isn't whether Lisa is definitively BLACKPINK's biggest global export. Maybe it's this. In an industry designed for uniformity, how did the most different trainee become the most singular star? 10 years down. And if the next 10 look anything like the last, this story is far from over.